Good morning and welcome to another edition of the Kitchings Table. Today is July 2nd, and as we prepare to celebrate our Independence Day this week, we definitely have to mention how much news is swirling around this country, both politically and otherwise. And with the fact that on yesterday, the Supreme Court probably issued down the most damaging opinion or damaging thoughts they could actually do to, I don't know, I won't even say it'll do irreparable harm because it will possibly be the catalyst to really create some tension, strife, stress as it relates to the democracy of this country. Uh, them handing down a judgment that the president of the United States, whomever that might be, will have immunity from criminal actions. That is going to definitely be something that is going to cause those legal scholars, political minions, political activists. It's going to be quite interesting going forward over the next 4 months as we prepare for the presidential election. But yesterday was, I mean, it was more than a gut punch. It was really like somebody lopping your head off. And with Judge Sotomayor giving her opinion so eloquently. If you don't know what she wrote, you need to read what she wrote because it was very, very, very to the point. And for the five justices to make a decision that the president will have immunity over his actions, over his things that he wants, things that he will do, things that he says. I mean, it's like they basically are on the borderline of calling him a king. That is not what this country is all about. That's why they left England. That's why they broke away from the United Kingdom and England because of the, I don't know if we want to say dictatorship or not. I mean, dictatorship is such a very harsh term because it is ruthless. However, when this country was established and because of the war that was fought against the British, then they wanted freedoms. Well, now freedoms are basically being given back and given to an individual to be in charge of the country and has no accountability. And it was a 5-4 vote yesterday, and it's it's almost it's speechless. It's mind boggling. You just and you have to wonder what made them make this decision. Corruption is running a little rampant nowadays. We're in places that this country never would have thought of being at and never hoped to be at. But here we are in 2024, uh, having to make decisions. And if some of this doesn't get minimized and straightened out soon, this is not going to be the country that many of us recognized from when we were growing up. The generations that are living now, I don't really know if they are actually understanding what is going on and whether they're ready to embrace this impactful situation that's coming because as they say, once you let the genie out the bottle, it's hard to put the genie back in. However, that decision is one thing that we will hold in abeyance for another day here at the Kitchings Table. Today, our topic is spirituality and politics. Spirituality and politics. Joining me, as always, my co-host, Miss Ronline Cannady. Ronline, boy, is the table getting hot or what?
I'm sorry. It is hot. It is hot. It's like serving those boiling grits.
Not
Straight
the
out.
hot grits. Not
Yeah,
the hot
straight out.
grits.
Straight out of the pot to the plate. In this
not the
case, a
hot grits.
bowl.
Wow. Do I get any butter with my grits?
Yes, get everything.
Yay.
Everything get tossed in. Salt, pepper, everything. Cheese.
Wow. Before we get into our topic today, any thoughts from you about what the Supreme Court decision handed down yesterday uh, means, and what your thoughts are about what they have now done to this country?
Yes. So when I was listening to the little clip that the president said, you know, that should be a wake up call to everyone about where this country is going. I heard um, our 45th say at
Your
once
'45th,
that said at once upon a time that there were some things that he wanted to do away with, and presidency, he was alluring that that was one of them. And to come to where it is today, um, the Supreme Court has been failing us for quite some time. And, let's looking at what has happened now, within the last, I think, just with the laws that have gone into effect as of yesterday, and
mm-hmm.
all of the rulings that just all over this country, there's a complete upset. And it should be a place where, we should be ashamed that we actually have been part of this situation, and um, not come to a point where we are actually looking at some real solutions. So to let things just keep going in a direction that it's going in, it's like, okay, are you really understanding what's going to happen to the future generations of yourself?
Mm-hmm.
Everyone has one, right?
Right.
So it's like, from our schools, that's impacting everyone, every child that has to go through the school system. There's no way of getting out of that child be impact, because they have to go to school, they have to be educated. And I just was listening to the news this morning of it now takes nearly $200,000 for one person to be able to take care of the things that they need in this country, starting with housing, not to mention all of the insurances that they need, such as for medical, um, and dental and auto, along with homeowners insurance, which a lot of people had to go into foreclosure because they couldn't afford homeowners insurance, and if they had a mortgage, they had to have it.
Right.
So $200,000 on a minimum wage of 11, 12, 13, 14, $15 an hour, and trying to be a part of the gig economy. When do you have time to raise your children? Trying to make ends meet. So to come to this part where you have 34 counts of felonies against you, and you're still walking around free to do whatever it is you want to do, to say whatever it is you want to say, we should be ashamed about that. I don't know anyone else that I could think of that had at least two counts of felonies against them that wasn't locked up. Bail was set so high that they couldn't reach it. So for this to be happening in our country today, in 2024, the 21st century, is really a shame. So I turn that over to you. Sound like a soapbox, but this is
Well,
what we'll be discussing at our kitchen table.
I'll say this, Ronline. That noise you heard, that sound you heard yesterday, was justice dropping the scales.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Justice
Yeah.
dropped the scales yesterday with the ruling from the Supreme Court that she just dropped her scales. I
Yes.
mean, because
And
you know,
probably blindfold too. Probably the
well,
blindfold
I know
too.
she snatched off the blindfold after she dropped the scales and
Yes.
and asked the proverbial questions. What the?
Yes, yes, yes,
But
yes.
again, this is where we are. We better get
Unfortunately.
ready for a couple of things
Anything. Yeah, anything at this point,
because
justice will not be
and
justice as we knew it.
my thought has been over the course of the last 4 years, those minions, those people who believe that the 2020 election was not valid, I believe they have been doing things to make sure that the next election, no matter what happens, will fall to the felon. That's what I call that gentleman, the felon. Now,
Mhm,
if we get rid of the uh, electoral college, if we get rid of the electoral college and let it just go by popular vote, then I feel we have an opportunity and a shot at keeping democracy here. But if this thing goes sideways, and I don't even like to speak into existence this this person, because I can't call him a human being because he has no humanity in him. Uh, this person, and I call him a disciple of that dark
mhm,
side, and
mhm,
I'm not talking about Darth Vader either. It's
mhm.
worse than that.
Yeah.
When you think about Darth Vader saying, "Come to the dark side, Luke." Shh, man, this makes that look like a cartoon.
Yes.
But we will see, and we're gonna, that's going to be the talk for a long time now. We thought Roe versus Wade being struck down was impactful. That was a gut punch. Uh, this has lopped off the head of justice. She dropped the scale, took off blindfold, and she's spinning around in a tizzy trying to figure out what in the world.
Mhm,
Because democracy, this is what this country is built on: the Constitution and democracy. The men who spent all that time writing up the Constitution. This may be one of the loopholes they never saw coming.
I'm
They
sure.
they thought that you know law and order and justice would be what it needed to be, and they wrote so many things to prevent so many things, but they did not see a biased or a corrupt or a biased and corrupt Supreme Court doing something to the level of granting immunity to the man who holds the highest position in the land. And one thing that came out in listening to a legal analyst, the you the judicial branch and the legislative branches of our government have multiple pieces. There are multiple legislators, congressmen, congresswomen. There are many judges on the judicial side. But what this legal analyst said, but there is only one on the executive side
Mm,
that controls everything. And when we talk about the president being over the Department of Justice, the Department of Education, when we talk about that individual having control over all of those, and nobody can really put that person in check except for Congress. But now that you've allowed the Supreme Court to bypass any of that, you know, where is the rule of law as it is supposed to be? So anyway,
mm.
that's that subject for another day because we all got to exhale and think of all the things that they did. And I pose a question: if the five Supreme Court justices are corrupt, should their ruling stand? If they are corrupt, if they have done improprieties, if they have done things that are shady, if they have committed crimes, should their ruling be upheld? and that's a question for another day. But today we're talking about spirituality and politics because when this came about, it struck me, it hit a chord, and I just wanted to make sure that we shared this with our viewers and listeners. So the reason why we're talking about spirituality and politics in this country, there has always been, based on the Constitution, a separation of church and state. We don't want those two to commingle. However, however, in states where it seems that Republicans, and I don't mean to make this a partisan thing, but it is, they are now implementing the church part of this country into the educational part of the country. And the two individuals that I'm speaking of, one is a governor and one is the secretary of the Board of Education in Oklahoma. The other one is the governor of Louisiana. And they have stepped way out on a limb and mandating the following things. In Louisiana, the governor is mandating that the 10 Commandments in poster form be placed on every wall in public classrooms. Every wall. Now, if you are familiar with the 10 Commandments, the first thing that came to my mind was, how do you make that stand up when you get to the second commandment? When it says, love thy neighbor as thyself.
Well,
So the first part of that is love.
mm-hmm.
The second part of that is thy neighbor. And I don't think anyone ever asked for a ruling on the clarification as what constitutes my neighbor.
Mm-hmm.
Not even Mr. Rogers can constitute my neighbor.
Mm.
God rest his soul, because that's what he used to, always sing, won't you be my neighbor? Well,
Mm.
Mr. Rogers, who are you talking about when you were talking about won't you be my neighbor? Are you talking about the person that lives to the left and the right of your home? The person that lives to the right, left, above you, and below you in an apartment building? Who are neighbors? And then thyself.
Mm.
I mean, doing something above yourself, doing something, taking care of those before you take care of yourself. So to mandate that must now be in the classrooms, on the walls, i.e. public schools. Now, it didn't sound like he said all schools. It said public schools, which has to be asked, well, are they already posted in Christian schools and private schools? And if they are not, are you not demanding that they put that poster up, the 10 Commandments up? So that's in Louisiana. And, these Republican governors tend to follow each other in certain things. The governor of Florida and the governor of Texas, they kind of, lockstep. So now you got the governor in Louisiana mandating starting this upcoming school year in 2024. So and I'll get to how many public schools there are and how many students there are in the school system throughout the state of Louisiana. But the next one is the Oklahoma State Secretary of Education, the state school superintendent, wants the Bible and its contents to be taught in schools for historical and other documented reasons. Now, I gave this some thought. When we talk about history, most times we associate history with a chronological timeline of some sorts. This happened at this time, and a few years later, this happened, and So everything we talk about historically has a date to it to some degree, most of the times. Uh, and I thought about that. I was like, well, even dating back to the snafu when that man thought he had discovered America, and we used to celebrate a holiday, and we used to have a little song we sang, 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue, and he landed on in what he thought was America and claimed that he discovered America, and Native Americans are sitting on the ocean shore looking at him like, well, who is this guy coming out here talking about he discovered us? What? No, but there are timelines, there are dates. So when you talk about biblical history, there are no dates, and it's basically a lot of stories and quotes and readings, but you can't identify chronologically by a date when these things happened. You can't really say that on December 25th that child was born because there's no, I've never seen a date. I've never seen it written in the book that says on December 25th he was born in a manger. I've never seen that, Ronline. I've never seen that.
I have
So
not.
correct me. I know you know. I know you know it backwards and forward. I've never seen that. So when you talk about that part of the book being taught for historical purposes, no, that's not how that works. And of course, it stops. It does not continue past a certain time, and there has been no biblical history over the last 1,000 years. But you want this to be used and taught for primary reasons. I mean, I what happens when what a teacher teaches from the good book in school collides with Sunday school teachings?
Hmm.
When you go to church on Sunday and there's a conflict, that's not what my teacher taught us. When the pastor says something from the good book and the child is question, see, because the children are going to be the ones that question this. See, the adults feel like they really know. It's like, yeah, that's right. Like, that's not right, man.
Mm-hmm.
That's not right. You know, when they talk about the three wise men traveling, how long did they travel? Because they weren't in an Uber.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So how long did it take them to get? The baby was born. How long did it take them to get to that point? Because it says they traveled for a minute. I mean, and on camels, come on. I mean, we're talking about three wise men from three different parts of the world at that time. At that time, so here I am in Jacksonville, Florida. So one guy came from Louisiana, one guy came from Tennessee, and one guy came from North Carolina. Or was it like, well, one guy came from Tallahassee, one guy came from Savannah, and one guy came from Gainesville? I mean, it doesn't say. It just say they traveled afar.
Yes.
Okay, so you want to bring this book into the classroom for teaching purposes. Now, the Constitution is built on separate church and state, and like I said, these lawmakers and politicians and head of local school agencies are implementing biblical context. Um, so it's going to be interesting. I did do some research to find out. Well, when we talk about, and I'm gonna start with this one first because I think this is more impactful than just putting up a poster with the Ten Commandments, because you can put it up and I can see it. I may not give it too much attention. It's on the wall, but okay, it's on the wall. I walk by it and I don't read it and I don't understand it. But when we talk about teaching, and I did look up here where we're living in here in Jacksonville, uh, some of the church schools, Christian schools that have in their curriculum Bible teachings or courses, curriculum where the Bible is being taught. One school only teaches it for one semester, maybe one semester per year. They are this is a high school from 9 to 12. So if you do it for every year, that's 4 semesters. And what exactly is being taught? When you talk about the Bible, as much information as there is in that book, how do you teach all of that, even in the course of 4 semesters, and make it make sense to a child without them questioning some things and asking, if they take it to their church, if they take it to their parents, if they take it to their Sunday school teacher, if they take it to their minister to get clarification. It's okay between church and home, but now you put it in school. What about the children who don't ascribe to that? They go to the school, but they may not ascribe totally to that.
So, Earl, this brings a couple of questions to me. And so, if you and I were sitting at our kitchen table and having a cup of coffee, talking about this, my question would be, is this the same school system that they took prayer out of? Is this the same school system that when you get ready to say the pledge allegiance to the flag and you supposed to have that moment, we substituted prayer with a moment of silence? And now you want the 10 commandments up on the wall taught simply because I think the bottom line is they want people to learn how to get along. So that's the first thing. Okay. Love thy neighbor as thyself. The second thing is don't take anything that doesn't belong to you. So thou shalt not steal. I think that's the bottom pit of pitching this to bring it, saying this is going to be the mandate for the schools, in public schools. So that's my take on, you're trying to reform the little people before they become adults, because you're okay. So that's where I am when I heard that.
Let me just share a couple of quotes.
And remember, we're nearing that break time.
I got you. So Ryan Walters is the Oklahoma State school superintendent who had sent a letter to state districts last Thursday ordering them to incorporate the Bible as an instructional support into the curriculum for grades 5 through 12, citing its importance as a historical document. Here's a quote. It's crystal clear to us that in the Oklahoma academic standards under Title 70 on multiple occasions, the Bible is a necessary historical document to teach our kids about the history of this country, to have a complete understanding of Western civilization, to have an understanding of the basis of our legal system. That is a lot right there. That is a lot. A necessary historical document. A necessary historical document to teach kids about the history of this country. And there is nothing in that book that references the United States of America. So you're already off base when you talk about teaching from that book about a society that came along many years later
before the United States was ever formed. Go to the break. Go to the break. Go to the break. I
All
need
right.
a
Hey,
moment.
this is the Kitchings Table. I'm your host, Earl Kitchings. As always, on Tuesday mornings at 10 o'clock, we like to bring you what we're thinking about and wanting to talk about at the Kitchings Table. That's what we do here. I'm joined, as always, with my co-host, Ronline, Cannady. So if you don't catch us live, please go online and check out one of the episodes that are already being posted, and you can hear from us and listen to us and challenge us. Whatever you want to do, it's all good because guess what? Here at the Kitchings Table, it's just two opinions, mine and Ron Lean's. That's it. Everybody's got their own. I'm just expressing mine as so many of these pundits do and so many of these radio hosts do when they have their shows. They're expressing their opinions and their thoughts and providing some things for you to think about. So that's what we do here at the Kitchings Table. We're just not at that major level. However, the content is still at a level that rivals them. So anyway, back to this topic, Ronline. So with the superintendent of the school system of Oklahoma saying that to coincide with the governor of the state of Louisiana, Jeff Landry, signed into law requires a poster-sized display of the Ten Commandments in large, easily readable format in all public classrooms. So these gentlemen have stepped way, 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 way across the line when it comes to church and state because now they want these things to be incorporated. And like you said, well, is this the same system or is this the same school system that said, no prayer in school, moment of silence? So now you're going to bring that back. And well, you know what, Ronline? Let me say this.
No, they're going to bring part of it back. But
Now they're probably not going to bring any of it back because this does
okay,
not apply. This
okay,
does not say we're going to have prayer in school. It does not say that. It says you're going to teach from the Bible and you're going to just post this poster up about the Ten Commandments. It don't say we're going to pray in school.
okay. And so this brings me to my next point. Follow the money. Where is the money into this? Because it's gotta be some money somewhere. What's what's
Well,
what's what?
well, you know, in all these businesses, when it comes time to things, money is somewhere in the loop. You might have to peel back a few layers to find out where it is and where it's coming from, and things of that nature. But here, hey, I got a point for you. So when a school superintendent states that he wants the Bible to be incorporated in the teachings of the history of this country, I got a question. Whose Bible are we using
Correct.
now? But here's the answer to that. Here's the answer to that. The gentleman who sells Bibles, because in his Bible he also has the Constitution, the Pledge of Allegiance, and other things in his Bibles that he's been selling. So I don't need to sell Bibles to individuals if a state school system is going to provide teachers with the Bible for them to use as a teaching tool. So if you have, I don't know, let's say 5,000, because you're talking about 5th through 12th. So if you're talking about 10,000 teachers or more having to have this book, gee, that's a nice order for my Bibles at
Wait,
$60 a pop.
hold up. We're not talking about the 45th again, are we?
The felon,
Yes.
does he not sell Bibles?
All right. Follow the money. Okay.
Well, there's the
So
money trail right there.
right, that now this making sense. Now this is making sense. Okay. And so we're talking about the who's in charge, and I saw Louisiana. Who else is in
Ryan
cahoots
Walters is the state school superintendent of Oklahoma who has
of
passed
Oklahoma?
down this mandate that the
Okay.
Bible will be used as a teaching tool.
And this is the one, okay. And so we're going to use the Felon's Bible, who has turned this Bible thing upside down, starting with the blaspheming of it when he goes and stand in front of that church,
Yes.
putting his, okay. And now here we are, what, less than 3 years, 4 years later. Now we're going to use this Bible, his version of the Bible, to teach our children from. Okay. All
Right.
right. And the large orders in order to get them in all the schools, you
Right.
know.
So
Okay.
who
To
who
make
validated?
sure to make sure that he makes up for the losses of the money that he has had to pay out over time for settling these lawsuits.
Okay, so now you entwine something. So now does the money that if they use his Bibles, does some of the money that he get from that pay for some of the things he did in the courtroom, i.e., um,
It definitely lines his pockets. I'm
okay,
sure.
so here's the thing: who vetted his Bible?
So I guess that would go back to the superintendent of Oklahoma.
No,
Okay.
because he probably won't touch that because he said, no, this committee vetted, because now I don't want to be the person that says, I did it. The committee vetted this Bible. I mean, who vets this book and who says, okay, because when we talk about book bans, it's like, so there's some things that, you know, in my Bible and my teachings when I go to my church, that's not in my book. Where did that come
Yes.
from?
So then that takes me to a whole nother level. Our African American history, AP, has been tossed into the trash pile or the burn pile, if you will. So, whose history are we now going to be substituting for in this Bible?
Well, let's go back to what you just said. Whose history? It said, let me go back to it now. The history about the history of this country. Now,
Uh huh.
let me break down that word for you. Let me break down that word for you. That word history. Let me break that down for you. It was broken down to me when I was in college, and when it was broken down to me when I was in college, I had to take a deep breath. I was like, "Oh my God!"
Yeah, school me. School me the way you
Okay,
were school.
all right,
School me old school style.
okay.
Okay.
So now I'm gonna spell it for you. Now, the way you spell it is history. Is that correct?
That is correct. That's the way I was taught.
When, when this speaker came and gave it to us when we were in school, you know what he did? He said HIS-STORY.
His story. Okay, his story. Okay.
History. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
there
His
you go.
story.
So
Uh-huh.
if you're not already incorporated in my history, I don't even have to worry about Black history because you're not in my history. So it doesn't get brought up. Now, here's the thing though, for those children of color in these schools, how do you validate their lives and their history and where they come from, their legacies and things? How do you validate that and say, well, because of course, as I read through some of these curriculums at some of these schools, and one school in their mission, in their curriculum overviews, makes a point of saying that religion, academic classes in religion, is used to strengthen both the intellect and the spirit.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So now I had to go find out, you know, when they talk about the history, when they talk about teaching history, some of the things that they're talking about when they talk about history, especially the United States history, they reference, have you ever heard of the pre-Columbian era?
Mm.
And this was the pre-contact era, spans from, just before Christopher Columbus came, and then after he got here, the history of indigenous cultures. They were already here in place, but of course, they were getting wiped out from either being killed or illnesses and things like that. But when we talk about teaching history and you're leaving pieces out, how do you justify leaving some things out? Because it's going to be very difficult to teach you the American history, U.S. history, the history of this country, because even to this day, you have to. So are we going to say, well, there was never a black man who was elected president of the United States? Is that not part of the history of this country? Are we going to say there was never a black woman who was the vice president of this country? I mean, how are you going to validate some of this stuff when the questions come out and you're talking about it from a biblical standpoint? It's like, man, y'all have he has stepped in this thing so deep. It's like, and I welcome him to come to some of the schools where they will question him on certain things. Some of the scholars will question him. Your teacher gave you a thought that you can't answer, and they couldn't get any answers at home. So now they bring it to you. Well, you're supposed to be this intelligent guy since you want to bring the Bible into the classroom. Can you answer this question, sir, as it relates to the history of the country from the biblical book, even though the biblical book has no reference to this country in it? How are you going to teach that about American history? Hmm. So we'll see. Some of the schools provide religious curriculums. And like I said, some schools you get credit for it. Some schools it's taught by semesters. And, I'm looking at one school where their religious department, this is what it's supposed to work on. However, when we talk about religion and then we talk about U.S. history, it's a very big gap and a void there because there's no connection. I mean, what are you going to reference from the Bible to American history? I mean, where is that connection? Since this man is talking about it needs to be used in order to teach the history of this country. Because you already referenced, well, Ronline, here it is, right? You referenced thou shalt not steal, right? Go to one much more harsher and harder than that. Thou shalt not kill. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh my goodness. Mm-hmm. So how do you minimize or eliminate that part when you're talking about the history? Because you had American Revolution, people died. You had the Civil War. That war is the war of all wars in this country. A lot of people got killed and died in that. I mean, how do you justify all of that from a biblical standpoint? Yes. So he's stepped into it. I know there are going to be those legal minds and scholars who are challenging it to the court system to keep him from doing this. So again, this is what we're talking about when we have these kind of individuals in charge of our school systems, a governor who says put up the 10 Commandments, kids in school, 5th grade, 6th grade, when you talk about thou shalt not steal, and somebody, my whatever, the first time when we're in something and, something is missing from our desk, my backpack, the first thing we say is somebody stole my pencil. Your pencil fell out your backpack on the floor. Somebody stole my pencil. Somebody
Mhm.
steal your pencil? Yes, somebody did. So when children get into those debates and it says thou shalt not steal, so what are you going to do when that happens? Or, you know, thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not kill what? So they have stepped into this and it's getting ready to be very complex, you know. And the superintendent from Oklahoma also stated adherence to this mandate is compulsory,
Mm.
almost saying you better do it or else.
Yes.
You using the Bible as a historical document. I love the way he framed that too. A historical document, not a historical book, a document. How does the Bible become a document? I mean, so now all books are going to be considered documents?
Mm.
How do you line all this up, man? I mean, so anyway, that I think that's going to about do it for me on this topic. I mean, it's too heavy. Like I said, it's deep. So I'm gonna let you have your Black History moment, and we'll call it a day.
All right, Earl. Well, thank you so much for your addition of the kitchen's table. I will. This is something to ponder. I would like for this to come back, though. I really would.
Okay, well,
All right. So today, our Black History acknowledgement is Bishop Von McLaughlin, co-founder of the Powers House of International Ministries here in Jacksonville, Florida. We're talking about schools today, and that was one of the things that he has done for our community here in Jacksonville, Florida. Is started the academy for the Potter's House. Um, he's gone on to start ministries, which has gone abroad. He and his wife, Lady Narlene McLaughlin, they are the dynamic duo. He has created jobs. He purchased, we have so many things in our communities that properties that have gone by the wayside, without care. But he has taken a significant area of the west side here in Jacksonville, Florida. He has started restaurants. He has bowling alley, so things like that, a whole mall, for incubating businesses. It's just done a whole big model for us to really model after him of what he is, well, what they have done, he and his wife. And we wanted to give way to that today because, as we talked about earlier today, about the spirituality and politics, you know, we cannot idly sit by and do absolutely nothing. We have to be out there on we have to vet our Congress people. We have to vet our senators, our city council, all of these places, all these offices that's in government, in order for this country to be ran correctly. And so I wanted to bring him to you today because, he's done everything as far as education is concerned, because education is truly the key. And with education being the key to everything, starting with our spirituality, starting with what we're learning in our homes and in the school system, to be able to go through college, to be able to raise up a nation on the biblical process of laws, to do right unto others, save this planet, save ourselves, and one day be in a better place for our generations to come, our future. So this wraps it up for the kitchen's table. And I hope you enjoyed that what we brought to you today. Go ahead, Earl, and close us out.
well, thank you, Ronline, for bringing Bishop Von McLaughlin to us, a visionary, a true visionary, and if other spiritual leaders could do some of the same visionary things he has done, not only from a spiritual content, but from a business content and from an educational content, because spirituality, business, and a school just is phenomenal. So thank you so much. That's going to wrap it up for us today on the Kitchings Table. We hope that we brought some inspiring things to you today and something that will make you have some conversations with family and friends and ask the questions. So until next time, here from the Kitchings Table for Ronline, Cannady, I'm Earl Kitchings saying, hey, go out and do something good for somebody today. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Peace.